Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems again, and welcome to a little fun video that I decided to do today where I'm going to be playing 3 tracks from the 2009 Supercross series that I have recreated in Monster Energy Supercross the game. And these tracks are pretty well known for the epic battles commenced upon them by James Stewart and Chad Reed that made up the tremendous 2009 season. So you'll see I kind of made up a fake James Stewart character from that season back when he was on the Yamaha. He was in Answer Gear, Bell helmets. Obviously I can't do the Red Bull helmet thing, but you get the gist. And yeah, I'm going to talk about these tracks a little bit, talk about what I did to build them, and then obviously talk about the reason why these 3 particular tracks are so important to the season, and kind of go back down memory lane a little bit. Since it was one of the best seasons in recent memory. So yeah, this is Anaheim 1. This is the first round of the year, as it usually is, and for some reason, I don't know why I didn't go to it this year. I have been to, since I've been alive, I would say I've been to half of the opening rounds I could probably go to, or probably have gone to. I live in San Diego, so Anaheim is literally an hour drive for me, and it's usually a good idea to go to the opener because it's the last time probably everybody will be healthy. But for this reason, or for this round, I wasn't there. I was there in 08 and I was there in 2010, and I really wish I would have been there in 2009 because this ended up being a pretty epic race. But I did watch this race on TV, and I remember it being the first time I watched a Supercross race with my now best friend Aaron, and his favorite rider then and now and still is Josh Grant, and funnily enough, Josh Grant ended up winning this race. So I'm talking about this track, just building it wise, just for a minute though. I kind of used references from a couple blueprint maps that I found, a 3D rendering of the map or of the track, and then I just went back onto YouTube and actually watched the race again to kind of get an idea of the lines and how they flowed. So I changed things up just a tiny bit, I would say, to make them flow a little bit better, like that section before. That section with the Supercross triple in it that I just went through. I made the quad in it a little bit easier to do. It was a real stretch in real life, but it was triple quad and then the Supercross triple. In this game, I definitely made it a little bit easier to do. And then obviously there's a couple sand sections on this track, one coming up 2 sections from now, and then one after going across the start straight that I could not make. So I used some small and large sets of those little whoops that they give you that come with the game to replicate sand, this being one of the sand sections, and then you came across the start straight and hit this sand section. So yeah, I don't know, pretty standard. I don't feel like it was that difficult to build or understand what's going on about this track. And it was definitely a cool layout. I felt that the layout itself made for some pretty good racing, and clearly it did, as it ended up being one of the more dramatic races of the season. So, kind of lead you in this a little bit. This was the only year Reed spent on Suzuki. He was coming off of winning the 2008 Supercross Championship, so he was now the defending Supercross champion. James Stewart, for the first time in his career, was not on a Kawasaki as a professional, as he had switched over to Chad Reed's team, San Manuel Yamaha, from the year prior. They took him on. Reed went to Rockstar Makita Suzuki. And the showdown was set to commence. Stewart was coming back from some form of knee surgery. He took most of the 2008 Supercross season off from, being able to compete because of this surgery. I think it was a torn ACL or something that he sustained at Washougal in 2007, if I remember correctly. But in 2008 outdoors, Stewart completed the the third ever, but the second rider to ever be perfect in an outdoor season. So it definitely seemed like he was carrying momentum. Obviously, the brand shift kind of was a weird thing, but they both came into the season with, I think, a lot to prove. And both of them clearly as the best riders on the circuit, as, Carmichael had long been retired. This was Villopoto's first full season in 450s, but he was not even kind of close to the same Villopoto that we would see 2 or 3 years later. So it was really Reed and Stu, just down to a nutshell. It was them from the beginning, them to the end, and Anaheim 1 started that, and Stewart got the whole shot. Reed started in 3rd right behind Josh Grant, passed Grant pretty quickly, then caught Stewart, and I think it was on lap 4 or 5. It was quite early. He passed him for the lead before the finish line when Stewart missed the rhythm section. I've been going 3-3-1 in it. Stewart went 2-2-2-1 and Reed went 3-3-1 before the finish. Made the pass and then led for, I want to say maybe 3 laps after that, maybe 2 or 3 laps. And then Stewart got him back in the section after the start straight. So they go down the start straight, little double in the first corner, and then Stewart got him in the whoops going through that first little section after the start straight. So Reed tries to latch onto him, and they're setting a blistering pace, so they're already getting away from Wyndham, who had now moved into third. Or no, I'm sorry. They're getting away from Grant, who was still in third. Wyndham was in fourth, and everybody remembers it as the slight delay corner. But after they came across the start straight, and I'll point this corner out and the section when I get to it, but they came across the start straight. They go through the sand, they go off the little ski jump single, and then before that little tiny set of whoops that I've built into this track that was on the track then, Stewart came out of the corner, and I think he officially said he missed a shift, and so I think he was still in first gear when he was trying to be in second or maybe even third going into the whoops. So he came out of the corner and the bike just bogged, it looked like, and Reed, who was cutting back across the track a little bit in order, it's this corner right here, so they came out of the corner, Stewart kind of came out and then bogged, and then Reed hit him coming across the track towards the right side of the track and hit the back of Stewart. Stewart augured into the whoops hard. I mean, just smashed his head into the third or fourth whoop in the line there. Reed flew off the track. This is also the same time that Reed's front brake was broken during this race. So Stewart's practically knocked out, laying in the middle of the track as Reed's scrambling back to his bike. Josh Grant takes the race lead, and Reed gets going in second. And as Stewart's trying to pick his bike up and gather himself a little bit, Wyndham's coming by for third. And this really was the thing that pissed me off the most about that whole situation was, I understand Stewart's not totally there at this moment, but he picked up his bike on the far right hand side of the track and for some reason decided, I'm gonna walk my bike completely perpendicular to the track off the left side of the track, and Wyndham was already coming, and Wyndham hits him, and Stewart falls down again, and Wyndham gets up and clearly starts mouthing something at Stewart, and Stewart's just trying to get the bike going, and kick, can't get it to go. Finally just gives up and starts walking back to the pits. And as I said, Reed broke his front brake in that crash, so he got up in second, eventually got passed by Andrew Short, so Reed would end up finishing third that night, which honestly I think became pretty crucial in the championship. But the race was won by Josh Grant, and without a little bit of drama, of course, as well. Grant, with 2 laps to go in this corner that I'm coming up to right here, he comes into this inside right here, and his rear tire gets caught on that tough block and rips the tough block cover off of it, and it gets caught in the rear wheel, and it starts spinning around, and then he comes down the start straight into the first corner, and as he's coming around this first corner, the tough block gets wrapped up, and then he goes over this jump and literally nosedives like that and barely saves it, but keeps going. The tire keeps going. He completely lost his rear brake, but he had a 15-second lead at the time on Short, so he really just nursed it home the last 2 laps and won his first, and to this point only, Supercross race, which is crazy to think about because this race seems like forever ago, but there's Josh Grant out there still racing and still yet to win another one. But yeah, absolutely wild opening round of the season. Complete chaos. Nobody knew what to expect coming into the season, but I don't think many people would have expected them to hit and Stewart to DNF and Reed to not even win the race. And I think that was the last time all season that neither of them won. I'm trying to remember. I think they both won the remaining races of the season, Stewart obviously winning a majority of them. But anyway, I mean, that was Anaheim 1 in a nutshell, really. That chaos happening. Like I said, I think Stewart admitted to having missed a shift, and that was what caused the slight delay. I remember Aaron Bates trying to interview him as he walked off the track, and Aaron goes, crazy night here tonight, huh, Stu? And then she said something like, what happened out there? And he just goes, I crashed. And like, I mean, you know, he's frustrated. He probably had some sort of like pre-concussion or mild concussion going on. So like you feel bad for the guy, but I had to just like burst out laughing when that happened because he was so matter of fact about it. Like, no shit, Sherlock, I just crashed. And then she's like, did you have a slight delay? And he said, yeah, it was nobody's fault. Stupid on my part. We'll regroup, blah, 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 blah. So crazy night to kick off the season. And as you'll see in these upcoming 2 tracks that I'm doing after this, it's going to be like a 30-minute long video. But it only seemingly got gnarlier from there between them, between James and Chad. And that was their first run-in of the season, the first time that they'd faced each other on their new bikes. With Stu being on the Yamaha and Reed being on the Suzuki. And yeah, I mean, it was I think it was like the ultimate precursor, like a good foreshadowing to what was to come, because I think on some level people expected it to be similar to the prior 2 seasons where, so like in 2007, Reed and Stewart were the 2 guys. Carmichael was retiring, but I mean, those were the 2 guys that were battling each other for the championship. But it really wasn't close. Like Stewart kind of demolished Reed all year long, and Reed stuck in with a few wins, which kind of wasn't the case in the prior years. Like Reed would actually be kind of on their level most of the time. But I mean, Stewart demolished Reed in 07, then Stewart missed all of 2008, so Reed won in 2008. And like I said, it just set up for a crazy season in 2009, and this was the opening round back then in 2009 at Anaheim 1. So yeah, let's jump into the next track, and I'll see you guys in just a sec. All right, guys, back again, and we're on to the, in my opinion, the second gnarly race of the season track, if that's what you want to call it. And this is Jacksonville 2009. I feel like it's kind of widely regarded as the best race that Stewart and Reed ever had together. Personally speaking, I think that they've had like better battles, but this one was full of emotion and drama, and it all started kind of in practice when they were like getting into each other, jawing at each other a little bit. I'm trying to remember if Indianapolis, which was the first race of the season Reed won, was before Jacksonville or not. I think it was. Or if it wasn't, I mean, they were definitely starting to get. They were very close in points. Stewart was winning many races, and I think if Indy wasn't before Jacksonville, then Stewart had won every single race up to Jacksonville. If Indy was before Jacksonville, then Reed had finally picked up his first win of the season before Jacksonville. Again, I'm sorry, I forgot, but Jacksonville was incredible. It's really more or less both of their hometown races. I know Reed's Australian, but he's lived in Florida for the last 12, 13 odd years of his life. So he's pretty used to Florida. He has a house here, or house there. He has, a plot of land that he's been racing and training on for years. And Stewart grew up in Florida. So like I said, it was kind of both of their away from home races that season. And it, again, did not disappoint. So it kind of started, like I said, jawing with each other in practice. I don't remember exactly what they were talking about, but they were kind of just rolling around. And, there's like a famous clip of them rolling around next to each other. And, Reed's getting in Stewart's face. Stewart's starting to talk back to him and all this stuff like that. And it led into a drama-filled evening with Reed getting the whole shot and trying to run away out front. Stewart started in second. I don't remember if he started exactly in second, but he got into second pretty quickly, and that's just how they were. They were nose to tail for the first 10 laps of the race, with Stewart like looking for maybe his opportunity here, maybe his opportunity there, but very clearly kind of biding his time to pick the right moment to get around Reed and hopefully get away from Reed before Reed was able to pick up on any lines or anything like that. So they get to about lap 10, I think it was, and Stewart's been eyeing him up for 9 laps prior, trying to pick his time, and finally coming down the start straight, Stewart's been working on this line that he finally makes work. Reed has been going inside in the first corner, and I'm about to show you what Stewart was doing, and it was gaining him a ton of time. So Reed was going inside through the first corner. Stewart came flying in, and he like never let off and would get to the outside. And then this part of the jump right here almost didn't exist, so he was just carrying all of his momentum, and he would double before here, and he ended up on the inside of Reed coming into this corner and like stood him up in this corner. But then Reed came into this next corner, he like doubled this and then doubled to the inside, and like it looked like he was going to square up Stewart for a T-bone. They ended up making some good contact and then came through this next section. They're like rolling side by side. Then Reed ends up on the outside coming into this next corner, so Stewart stands him up in this corner over here. They come back across this, they do this little tire tap thing, come back across the start straight, and they've been all going wide into this corner ahead of us, but Reed tucks inside and jumps alongside Stewart on the Supercross triple, so they go side by side. Reed ends up on the left side, and Stewart cuts hard over to the inside of the track in this corner, clips Reed as they're coming into the corner. Stewart almost crashes because of the Reed hitting his back end and causing him to swap. So then Reed takes the lead back, and the right front fork guard on Reed's bike is like completely knocked loose, and then a lap later Stewart does the exact same move here, goes wide, ends up alongside of him, scrubs down the Supercross triple, and this time stands him up in this corner, and that time it was for good. Like he made sure Reed wasn't going to be able to come back on him in the next corner. Reed wasn't able to, and Stewart took off from there. Didn't win by a huge margin, if I remember. I think it was maybe like 4 or 5 seconds in the end, and they came over the finish line after that, and Reed pulled up alongside coming into the first section as Stewart's waving to the crowd. And there's again another like famous Reed Stewart clip here. Is Reed starting to yell at Stewart's ear, and then he grabs him by the neck and is like trying to get it like closer to him, I guess, to say like, hey, I didn't appreciate whatever. And Stewart and they have an interview where they talk about this whole situation, but Stewart apparently got frustrated that Reed grabbed him by the neck, so he like said, don't touch me, and quit grabbing my neck and stuff like this. And Reed's like, look man, I'm not trying to get in your face about this, but and what Reed was pissed about was the cross jump, because they were side by side on that Supercross triple, and then into the next corner Stewart went from the far right hand side of the track to the far left hand side of the track, and it almost took both of them down again, just like at Anaheim. It almost took Stewart down more so, but ask any pro rider on the circuit, and cross jumping is just the biggest no-no that exists out there. You can T-bone someone, you can take someone out hard, but if you cross jump them, you're basically trying to commit career suicide. And I think that's what Reed was trying to convey to Stewart there, like, hey man, we can take each other out, we can do this, we can do that, but just don't cross jump me. And that's what he was saying, and Stewart understandably got very upset at Reed grabbing him, and said like, don't do that, like get off me, this isn't how it's going to be. So I think this would be the part of the season where it like ramped up the most, like intensity wise. Like their rivalry was a rivalry, but I wouldn't say that they necessarily like hated each other up to this point. But after this happened, like it was on, like there was no more friends on the track. Stewart was clearly not going to give Reed an inch anymore, much less was Reed going to do the same. So I would say, like I said, that this race, what it did was, despite being a pretty good battle for a lap or two there, it completely changed the dynamic of the season around, where suddenly Reed had like an extra fire in him to beat Stewart every week, because it's like, okay, this guy clearly doesn't like me, Stewart doesn't, probably doesn't think that Reed likes him, and then they don't like each other, and it just turned into a whole debacle. And I think the fans really were into it at this point. I know, for my sake, it was definitely like my entire family was on one side or the other, it seemed, and we were arguing with each other all the time. It was quite a crazy scene in 2009. But just talking about my thoughts, I guess, on that whole situation is like, I'm neither here nor there about what was going on during practice. I don't really feel like Stewart that dramatically cross-jumped Reed, but I can understand Reed's frustrations, and as I said, I can completely understand Stewart's frustrations about Reed grabbing onto him and trying to push him around. Like, that's just totally not cool in that sense. So kind of funny that Reed's in second and I'm leading as pretending to be James Stewart here. But yeah, the race was good. It definitely heightened the intensity for the season. I would have liked to see the battle last a little bit longer. Like, as good as the battle was for a lap, it definitely died down quite quickly. But the drama behind it was intense. And that's what I think really just like made the season between these two, was that, you know, like last year, for example, with the Dungey and Tomac situation, it wasn't really until the very end that they had a somewhat of a resentment towards each other. Like, Tomac was just clicking off wins, and he didn't really care where Dungey was or what he was doing. But the second KTM did the Musquin switch in East Rutherford, Tomac was pissed and didn't like Dungey at that point. But this happened at the halfway point of the season between Reed and Stewart. So you had 9 more rounds to go where these guys were going to be at each other's necks, no doubt about it. And it, like I said, it just created a ton of drama going forward in the season. And you know, like I said, so these 3 races that I've picked, and the next one I'm going to talk about is Salt Lake City, and that's another track that I've created. These are just the tracks that I really determined to be like the kind of defining moments of the season for the championship. You could talk too about Indy, which Stewart was leading. I think he crashed, or no, Reed got a whole shot and was leading. Stewart caught and passed him, but then Stewart crashed with the lead. Or what exactly happened? Oh, Stewart did crash twice, right? He lost the front end in a corner after a rhythm section. Reed passed him for the lead. Stewart got up, caught and passed Reed again, and then the famous front brake tap on the inside bail before the finish line jump, like 3 laps before the end, and Stewart fell again. Reed won his first race of the season. So that was another dramatic point in the season. There was also Daytona, where Stewart tucked his front wheel on the slippery grass going into the first corner and caused like a massive pile up in the first corner. His bike went flipping off the track. He like kind of famously got up dazed and confused and picked up his teammate Josh Hill's bike because he was like, "Where's my bike? I don't know what's going on. I'm going to pick this bike up because it looks like mine." And it was Josh Hill's bike. And then Josh is like, "Hey, no, that your bike's over there off the track." And then everybody was down in that first corner, as I remember. And I think Reed won that race, if I remember correctly. So there was that. I'm sure there was a couple other big moments in the season that I'm forgetting. St. Louis, 2009. That was... I don't feel like that race was so much remembered for the race it was, because like they battled, but it wasn't, very crazy, and Stewart crashed all by himself again and cost himself the victory. But the track was by far one of the best tracks in Supercross history. It was designed by Travis Pastrana. It was a really good track, so I guess I could have built that one too and maybe shown that one off, but like I said, I'm more talking about the Reed-Stewart situation. So I feel like Salt Lake City is probably a little bit more dramatic for the championship's sake, and that's why I built it, and I'm going to show it off coming up in about 30 seconds here. But wrapping up Jacksonville, another chaotic night of racing for these two, and kind of switch the tone of the series going forward, and it kind of will play a big factor in what I think caused Salt Lake City to be a dramatic race, and I'll talk about that coming up in just one moment. All right, guys, back again. The third track on this little 3-track extravaganza, throwing it back to 2009, and it is Salt Lake City. This was round number 15 of the series, so it was the second to last round. Vegas was after this, and Vegas again was another important race of the series, but I feel like this one kind of meant a little bit more, and the reason why is because if Reed could have won with Stewart finishing second at this round, they would have gone into Vegas tied. Obviously, it would have created quite a tense situation in Las Vegas. Stewart had been kind of the fastest guy all year long, but Reed is really good in Las Vegas. He'd won there multiple times before. And I think that, on paper, many thought that Reed could actually win Vegas straight up, despite the speed that Stewart had all season long. So this, dramatic championship battle comes down here, Salt Lake City. Again, like I said, I think there's 3 points in between them. So if Reed won, they would leave tied. and Stewart, obviously really wanted to win to, bring this thing home. And then it ended up raining at Salt Lake City, because what else is going to happen? So it rained a little bit, made the track kind of muddy. We had some, adverse conditions, I would say. It wasn't like the worst track. They were still jumping everything, but the track was definitely, it got moist, it got loose and blue grooved in some spots, and it was overall kind of a strange, soil type of the track as it ended up. But yeah, again, they start out front together, and Reed hole shot, I think it was. Yeah, Reed hole shot. Stewart was in like fourth, but very quickly got into second. And then it became a game of cat and mouse for the first 4 or 5 laps. And there was a line at the end of the stadium that I'll talk about in just a second that Stewart was doing that eventually Reed picked up on, but it cost him early. And so, they're working on each other a little bit early on. They're definitely getting away from the rest of the field. And Stewart's just kind of eyeing up his opportunity again with Reed, as he was most of the season. He would get behind him and then just wait for his move. But down here at this end of the stadium, Reed was coming into the inside of this corner, and he was rolling this and then double, and then he would triple this, whereas Stewart was triple doubling it, and it gained him so much time. Like, he was able to get right up on Reed every lap that he did it, and then finally squared him up and got the lead away from him. Reed fought back in the next corner that I just went through right there. Reed took the lead back, and then Stewart again had to kind of wait for his opportunity. Eventually got it and passed him for the lead. I think it was actually, in that same corner that Reed got him back right before the finish line there, that Stewart got him back for the lead, and that was like maybe 3 or 4 laps later. And then Reed, wanting to make sure that this title goes to Vegas tied, or, doing everything he can to win the race, kind of tried to tee Stewart up a little bit, I would say. So this is the line that Stewart did to take the lead. I messed it up, but he would double, triple, and then double to the inside here. Reed picked up on that line, and then once he got into the lead, he actually did it consecutively, and I would say he even did it better than Stewart for quite a few laps in a row, and it allowed him to get, a little bit of breathing room for the time being. It didn't last. Stewart got back to him and passed him, like I said. But then in this corner, as they came out of the first corner, like, Reed totally came down the inside right here and pushed Stewart wide. Stewart almost went down on some tough blocks right here. This was at lap 8 or so in the race. And remember, this was 20-lap races back then, so we weren't even halfway, and all the drama seemed like it was already kicking off. So Reed got out in front again. He opened up a less than a couple second lead, I would say. I mean, he had a gap, but it wasn't huge. And again, slowly but surely, Stewart clawed his way back in, and before you know it, he was on him for the lead and got him again. And then it turned into kind of crappy situation, I would say. And I don't remember the exact result, like penalty-wise, of what happened here. But as they're battling for the lead, they're starting to work through lappers. Stewart's leading the race, and Reed's trying to look for maybe another opportunity back by. They come up to lap then Stewart's teammate, Kyle Chisholm, number 38, Samuel Yamaha. And so they come through this section here. Stewart laps Chiz right about here, I would say, and Reed's trying to get around him, so they come through this corner. And Chiz tables this and then jumps up onto this table and sends it into this next corner, comes to like a dead stop at the top of this corner, and he's trying to avoid hitting his teammate Stewart, but what he actually did is hit Reed, and Reed almost went down, and it looked pretty darn intentional. I don't remember exactly if Chisholm agreed to, or like admitted to trying to take Reed out or not, but it looked super intentional, and Chisholm was eventually, later on in the race, black flagged and disqualified, and it did not reach the ire of the officials quite well. And it I wouldn't say it threw a black cloud over the championship hunt at that point, but it definitely made it seem like, wow, San Manuel's going to stoop to team tactics at this point. I don't think Stewart was wanting it to happen that way, and I know Reed was very frustrated with the situation, but it looked a little bit shady. And, Reed didn't go down. He still finished second, ended up 6 points gap between them going into Vegas. So I don't think it was really the worst thing ever, and I don't think that Chisholm should be like shamed for it. And honestly, Reed and Chisholm are pretty good friends now. They both live close together in Florida, and they've been friends for a long time. So obviously they've kind of laughed it off. But at the time, it very much looked like San Manuel had, in some sense, initiated some team strategy there with Chisholm getting lapped to have him go after Reed in order to help Stewart out. Now, again, like I said, it didn't really help. Reed stayed up. He lost a tiny bit of ground at the time, but eventually lost a couple more seconds here and there, and Stewart went on to win the race, and like I said, took that 6-point lead with him to Vegas, which ended up being really crucial. But it was like another dramatic point in the season, and it really didn't need to be. It was really those two guys going at each other. I think Chisholm or not in that situation, Stewart was going to win the race. He was very clearly faster than Reed for most of the evening, and kind of bought his time, passed him 3 or 4 times, and eventually made it stick. And it did help him gain a bit of a gap with Chisholm doing what he did, but overall he was going faster anyway, so I think he was going to get away. But what it did do is make it so Reed didn't have, his retaliation effort available. He couldn't, come into the next corner and push Stewart off the track or do something like that. He just lost a huge chunk of time with Chisholm getting in the way, and like I said, it put a little bit of a black eye over the championship, which I 100% believe James Stewart worked very hard and deserved to win, which he eventually did win. But I do remember back then even that public opinion of Chisholm went down the tube. And I don't even think he got a decent ride for many years after that. It was tough going for him to find something, because he was kind of labeled as this guy that's going to try to fix championships. So that's what I remember about Salt Lake City. Dramatic night, changed the championship a little bit, but not too much, because like I said, I think Stewart was going to win anyway. They go to Vegas, Villopoto. Oh no, so said that I thought Grant was the only guy to win other than Stewart and Reed at the beginning of this video. I'm 100% wrong. Villopoto won his first race of the season at Seattle and then followed it up with his second career win at Vegas, which... Stupid Supercross Live, man. They need fact checkers, but they showed a video of Stewart and Villopoto battling for the win at Vegas back in 2009, and they listed it as this epic last lap battle for the win. The thing happened on the second lap of the race, because the epic part of that evening was Chad Reed trying to take James Stewart out when they were battling for second, in order to put Stewart, far enough positions back that if Stewart finished, I think, 5th and Reed finished 2nd, then Reed would win the title. I think that's the correct numbers. But definitely Reed went in and tried to take him out in the long sweeper outside of the stadium, and it was it was a chaotic moment for sure. But that was really the only moment. They weren't battling before then. Villopoto very quickly got around Stewart for the lead at the beginning, took off. Reed could not get to Villopoto before the end, so it didn't matter anyway. And Stewart ended up winning the championship by 4 points. One of the best championship seasons ever. Stewart was very clearly the best rider all season long, but that DNF at Anaheim 1 really hurt him. He was crashing a lot more later in the season, so Reed was able to pick up a few victories there because of some Stewart mistakes. And the absolute epic rivalry between the two of them really escalated in this season and made for one of the best Supercross seasons in recent memory, that's for sure. So just a little bit of a trip down memory lane today. Not too intensive or anything, but showing off 3 new tracks that I decided to kind of try to replicate to the best of my abilities. I'm not saying they're perfect, but at least they do a pretty good job of showing off these tracks from back then. And cool little thing to talk about, because I don't get to talk about these two very often these days. Reed's kind of towards the tail end of his career and hasn't been doing much this season, and Stewart is without question retired at this point, but he just never said a farewell. And it's kind of sad that these two absolute legends are basically, one is out the door and the other is, I feel, on his way pretty soon. And kind of fun to go back and I guess relive these battles every once in a while and remember the good old days of Supercross. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little trip down memory lane and these 3 tracks. They're all called, the first one is SYS space A1 space 2009. It's on the PC. The second one is SYS space JAX for Jacksonville space 2009. And this last one is SYS space SLC 2009. So you can go ahead and try them out on PC if you'd like. If not, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, this little trip down memory lane. And I hope to see you guys in all of our future videos on the channel. But thanks for watching another video here on SYS. My name is Kellen, and I'll see you guys in the next one.